So in IT services and consulting, we're seeing three things at the end of this year that we think are going to carry over well into 2024. One of them is around talent, and it was a retention story back in 2022 and 2023, but all the investment that's been put into training, into bringing talent up to speed around whether it's new technologies or new ways of working or new ways of creating value, we're going to see that pay off in 2024. And I think what we'll see is that the IT services vendors and consultancies that actually invested in their people and invested in training, their revenues are going to accelerate ahead of peers going all the way through 2024. A second thing, and this is more related to generative AI, which I kind of hinted at, is around how pricing will be done in the IT services and consulting space. So we've talked about outcomes-based pricing for a long time. It's always been a preferred but little used model. Generative AI provides greater transparency. It provides a greater opportunity to understand where money is being spent on both the technology and on the services. And because of that, a lot of customers are going to be coming to their IT services vendors and consulting counterpart or providers and ask them for outcomes-based pricing. And the key here is that the consultancies and the IT services vendors who have the most nimble business models, who are most flexible in their ability to work with their clients, and really who have the financial solidarity or solid foundation that can actually pivot to an outcomes-based pricing, they're going to do extremely well in 2024. And then I think the last thing that we're going to see is there has always been creeping regulations across all aspects of the economy. That's only going to continue, but with again, generative AI and questions about are the robots going to take over? How much can we trust the technology? Governments are increasingly becoming more interested in greater regulatory oversight, and that is a huge opportunity for, in particular, the big four firms. They have a governance, risk, and compliance background. They have that mandate already. So what we're going to see are those four firms in particular do well as this begins to expand, as those opportunities around governance, risk, and compliance expand with the adaptation of generative AI, which is going to lead to more concern about trust, concern about ethics, those kind of things. It's a great opportunity. What's key for everyone else in the space, of course, is if you're not already partnering with one of the big four firms in order to bring that as part of your full portfolio of solutions around technology and around consulting, then you need to find that partner. Yeah, the biggest thing that we're going to do is we're going to build on what we've already been doing around ecosystems. So we have been looking at how the largest IT services vendors and consultancies partner with the largest of their technology partners, the hyperscalers, Google, AWS, and Microsoft Azure. We want to expand that. We already have a little bit. We're going to continue to do that. And it's really important for us to take how deeply we understand the IT services vendors and consultancies in one practice and how deeply we understand the software and the cloud providers in the other, and put those two together and really understand those relationships beyond just headcount and revenue, but really understanding what's driving the partnerships, why are they partnering the way they are. And then real importantly, we're going to take it one step further and say, it's great to talk about the big guys. How are the smaller vendors? How do they play? What's the role that a smaller vendor can play, either a technology vendor or an IT services vendor can play in that broad alliance ecosystem? So that's number one. The second thing we're going to look at is industry. The pendulum in IT services and consulting tends to swing through horizontal solutions, geographic focus, and industry. And I think we're heading back into an area or a time when IT services vendors and consultancies are going to rely on their industry expertise as something to be able to differentiate. It's always been there. I think it's going to come back to prominence. So for us at TBR, what we need to understand is how does a renewed industry focus change the business model? How are they going to hire differently? How are they going to go to market differently? What's going to be the impact on their revenues and on their growth by shifting to an industry model? So we're going to look at that as well. And I think the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to really dive deeper. This is going to sound crazy, but on the companies we already know really well. But we cover a lot of companies every single quarter. I'll take Accenture as an example. We look at them every different way possible. And I think it's important that we continue to do that, but I also think we need to be sure that we're not going to be caught off guard. We're not going to be surprised by something that Accenture or any other of the other companies that we cover does. We want to be able to dive deeper, look at service lines, look at things that they're doing that we haven't paid as much attention to in the past, and really improve the quality, the depth of our analysis across all of the companies we're already covering.